The Langford estate was more than just wealth, it was theater. A sprawling French chateau-style mansion nestled behind iron gates, with a marble foyer so polished it reflected chandeliers like a mirror. That morning the household was humming. Like a hive, staff members moved like clockwork, polishing glasses, folding napkins, checking crystal vases that lined the corridors. Outside, luxury cars lined the circular driveway, arriving one after another for the Langford Foundation's exclusive brunch. Marlene adjusted her maid's blazer and stepped quietly through the side corridor, holding her son Isaiah's hand. The 11-year-old boy had on a clean but worn-out gray t-shirt and dark jeans. His eyes scanned the marble floors and golden frames, but he wasn't intimidated. He just looked curious, thoughtful. Like he always did, she whispered. Stay near the staff area, Isaiah. Don't talk to anyone. Yes, Mama, he said, gripping the tiny chess book in his hand, his favorite. He never went anywhere without it. In the center of the banquet hall, Victoria Langford stood laughing with her usual clique of elites, real estate moguls, venture capitalists, and art collectors. In her tailored cream suit and diamond tennis bracelet, Victoria looked like power personified, but she was bored. These events were all the same, rich people showing off. Predictable small talk. So when she saw the black maid walking past with a child, she paused. She walked over, wine glass in hand. Marlene, who's this? Marlene straightened. My son, Isaiah, ma'am. School's closed today. I had no one to watch him. Victoria leaned down and smiled at the boy, though her tone dripped with superiority. Well, hello there. Do you play tennis like the other boys your age? Isaiah shook his head. No, ma'am. He plays chess, Marlene said quietly. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Chess? At his age? She turned back to her guests and chuckled. Now that's new. A little chess prodigy in our very own staff wing? Then she waved her hand. Bring him over. Let's see what he's got. Marlene blinked. Ma'am, I don't think... Oh, don't be shy. It'll be fun, Victoria insisted. She motioned toward the grand mahogany chess table near the fireplace, a piece imported from Florence. Let's see if he can give me a decent warm-up before Mr. Litton arrives. Isaiah looked at his mother for permission. She hesitated, then gave the smallest nod. The guests turned curiously. Some chuckled, others sipped their drinks, expecting a light-hearted show. A maid's son playing chess with a millionaire? It was entertainment to them. Isaiah sat down across from Victoria, legs dangling off the high-backed chair. He placed his tiny book beside him and looked at the board. Victoria smirked. White or black? Isaiah said calmly. Black, please. She laughed lightly and made the first move. Let's play then. In the corner, Marlene stood frozen. Her heart racing not out of fear of embarrassment, but out of what was about to unfold. Because she knew her son. And they didn't. The estate buzzed with opulence, marble floors, gold leaf crown moldings, and oil paintings of stern ancestors watching from gilded frames. It was the kind of place where elegance wasn't a choice, it was inherited. Olivia Carmichael, a high society widow who'd inherited her late husband's tech empire, had invited several influential guests to a brunch gathering. And because she fancied herself charitable, she insisted her staff be presentable, particularly her housekeeper, Lorna, a quiet black woman who had worked for her for 5 years. Lorna's 10-year-old son, Elijah, had come along because his usual sitter was unavailable. Olivia didn't mind children bored her, but they stayed out of the way. Elijah sat silently in a corner of the drawing room, gripping a second-hand novel and occasionally glancing at the massive crystal chandelier swaying above. A grand antique chessboard rested on the table near the fireplace, pure ivory and ebony pieces arranged mid-game, abandoned by Olivia's guests who had no real interest in strategy. It was decoration more than entertainment, while Lorna moved discreetly through the room, refilling drinks and adjusting napkins. Olivia's sharp eyes flicked toward the boy. She smirked and whispered to her circle of elite guests, "Let's give the little prince a moment to shine." A guest chuckled, sipping mimosas, eager for a break from political gossip. Elijah, Olivia called sweetly, her tone condescending. You know how to play chess? Elijah stood slowly. His quiet demeanor gave the impression of shyness, but his eyes, steady and alert, hinted at something deeper. Yes, ma'am. He replied with a respectful nod. The room filled with amused murmurs. Olivia gestured toward the board. Come then. Play with me. Let's see what your mother's been teaching you besides manners. Lorna's face tightened across the room. Her hands froze mid-pour as a glass of champagne nearly overflowed. She opened her mouth as if to say something but closed it quickly. She had learned long ago not to speak up in rooms like this. Elijah walked to the board with calm grace and adjusted the pieces properly before sitting down. Olivia took the white pieces with exaggerated flair. Ladies first, she announced. And the small audience chuckled. Elijah didn't smile. He didn't blink. He just observed. Olivia made her first move a safe, elegant opening. Elijah responded instantly. Then again and again, within 5 moves, the atmosphere shifted. The light-hearted smirks began to fade. Elijah's fingers moved like water across the board, swift and deliberate. The game, meant to mock, began to transform. Guests leaned in. Olivia hesitated at her 7th move. Elijah didn't. Lorna stood frozen by the wall, heart pounding. She knew what her son was. She had seen him solve puzzles upside down, beat chess apps at the highest difficulty, and once checkmate his principal in 5 moves at a school open house. But this was different. These weren't people who valued brilliance from boys like him. They valued control, and Elijah was quietly taking control of the room. By the time Olivia lost her queen, no one was laughing anymore. The room had fallen into a soft, suspenseful silence. Gone were the smug grins and patronizing whispers. Elijah, with his small frame and scuffed sneakers barely touching the floor, had everyone in the room leaning forward. A boy whose name no one had cared to learn just 20 minutes ago was now commanding the full attention of CEOs, philanthropists, and hedge fund millionaires. Olivia Carmichael's expression had changed. Her glossy pink lips were tight, her forehead creased, and her hand trembled slightly as she hovered over the board. The move she had planned no longer worked. Elijah had shut down her line of attack with brutal elegance, sacrificing a pawn to trap her rook and lure her queen into danger. It was no longer amusing, it was war. Is he memorizing openings? Whispered one of the guests to another. No, murmured another. He's reading her. Elijah didn't look smug. He didn't grin, didn't fidget. He watched the board and the woman across from him with complete focus. His left hand gently touched his right wrist, a quiet habit he had developed when he was thinking. He didn't rush, but neither did he hesitate. Every move came within seconds. It was natural. Like breathing, Olivia moved her bishop, then immediately regretted it. Elijah's fingers touched his knight, then pulled back. He was 3 steps ahead, not just on the board. In the room, across the hall, a retired judge from the state board who had wandered in late stood frozen in the doorway. He leaned toward a woman beside him and whispered, "That boy's not just talented, he's gifted. The others nodded slowly, reluctantly, because it was becoming impossible to deny. Elijah had turned the game on its head. His queen slid across the board like a blade. Check. Olivia flinched. Lorna stood in the corner, her heart somewhere between pride and fear. She wanted to scream, "See, this is my boy. This is what's inside him," but she also knew how easily this moment could twist. She had seen how success, when it came from the wrong place like a maid's child, could make powerful people uncomfortable. Elijah sat back. "Your move, ma'am." Olivia stared at the board for nearly a full minute. Then she sighed, quiet, restrained, like a balloon deflating under pressure. "I've never seen someone play this style before," she said carefully. I just see patterns, Elijah replied. "They kind of light up when I look at the board." One guest blinked. "That's synesthesia?" Asterisk. No, said another. That's genius. Asterisk, and just like that, the boy they had ignored had become the center of the room. Elijah didn't raise his voice. He didn't win through attitude or swagger. He didn't need to dot, his moves spoke for him, and they were louder than anything that had ever echoed off those marble walls. Asterisk. The chandelier above glittered like a sky full of judgment, casting a golden glow on the scene unfolding below it. Elijah sat motionless, save for the occasional precise movement of his hand across the polished ivory and ebony chessboard. Around him, the crowd had thickened, no longer just idle brunch guests, but attentive observers caught in the gravitational pull of something rare. Something raw. Olivia Carmichael was losing, not in the polite, staged way that a host might feign defeat to a child, but genuinely, deeply, she was cornered, and every path she considered felt like walking into a trap he'd already anticipated. Her brow was damp now, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, her perfectly glossed nails tapping the edge of the table as if to signal distress. Asterisk. Elijah's face didn't change. Still calm, still laser-focused. He didn't show joy or satisfaction, only commitment. A commitment to the board, to the rhythm of the game, and to his own invisible calculations that no adult in the room could decode. Asterisk. One of Olivia's closest friends, a political lobbyist known for outwitting opponents in D.C. backrooms, spoke in a hushed voice behind her. Don't force it, Olivia. He's controlling the pace. Wait him out. Asterisk. I can't wait him out, she muttered through her teeth. He's 10. He's winning, someone else added. That word stung. Winning, not amusing. Not entertaining? Winning. Asterisk. The moment had become too real. Asterisk. Lorna stood across the room, her hand clutched tightly around a napkin. Her mind spun with conflicting thoughts, worry that Elijah's brilliance would make Olivia feel humiliated, fear of the backlash that could follow, and overwhelming pride that made her knees feel weak. The boy she raised on second-hand puzzles in public, library visits, was standing toe-to-toe with a woman who'd once been invited to play chess with a senator, and he was dismantling her. Olivia moved her rook with a forced smile. I think I've found a little room to breathe, she said loud enough for the audience to hear. It was a front one Elijah saw through instantly. Asterisk. He responded with a pawn move so elegant and complex that one of the onlookers, a quiet venture capitalist named Morgan Levison, audibly gasped. Oh my God, that's a trap. It looks like relief, but asterisk. Next move cuts off her left flank, another whispered. Olivia froze. Her hand hovered above the board, then dropped. Not on a piece on the table. Asterisk. Check, Elijah said. Softly, a hush rippled through the room. Some people exchanged glances. Others looked at Olivia, waiting to see how she'd recover. She didn't. Instead, she leaned back slowly in her chair. Her expression, finally, was honest. Defeated, surprised, and, if only for a second, respectful. You're not just a chess player, she said, her voice low. You're an anomaly. Asterisk. Elijah looked at the board, then at her, blinking. I just like the way the pieces talk. The entire room seemed to exhale. Then came the applause. Asterisk. It wasn't thunderous. It was subtle, classy, the kind reserved for a soloist after a perfect performance at the Philharmonic. But it was applause. For him. Asterisk. Olivia looked toward Lorna. Now, not with amusement, not with dismissiveness, but with awe. And for the first time in that room, the maid wasn't invisible. She was the mother of the boy who silenced a millionaire with a pawn. Asterisk. The applause faded into a gentle hum of admiration. Murmurs and stunned reflections. Elijah didn't stand immediately. He simply adjusted the pieces back into their starting positions, methodical, respectful. Like a ritual, like the board deserved gratitude. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't aware that he'd just humbled a woman whose net worth exceeded 9 digits. He was just done playing. Asterisk. Olivia sat back in her chair, her face still unreadable. Lifetime of calculated expressions was finally failing her. She had built herself on perception, on staying poised. But today, it wasn't her name, her wealth, or her titles that had turned heads. It was the quiet power of a boy she hadn't even planned to speak to. Asterisk. Elijah. She said slowly, standing as the guests parted. He looked up. Asterisk, yes, ma'am? Asterisk, would you join us again sometime? Her voice cracked slightly. I'd like to see how you play against my coach. He trained under Anand in Chennai. Asterisk, Elijah tilted his head. Sure, I'd like that. Asterisk, a ripple of surprised laughter spread. Olivia had never extended such an invitation to anyone without a resume longer than a novel. Asterisk, just then, a man in a navy suit stepped forward from the back of the room. He had white hair, thoughtful eyes, and the soft presence of someone who didn't need to prove his power. Miss Carmichael, if I may, he said, then turned to Lorna. I'm Dr. Edward Lang, Director of the National Institute for Gifted Youth. I was invited here by Mrs. Levison. I'd like to speak with you privately, if possible, about your son's future. Asterisk, Lorna's heart stopped. She felt her knees tremble. Me? She managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Asterisk, Dr. Lang nodded. Him. But yes, you. Asterisk, Olivia stepped aside. Use my study. It's quiet. As they walked away, murmurs followed like shadows. He didn't even flinch. Asterisk, that kid saw 4 moves ahead at least. Asterisk, did you see how calm he was, like a machine? Asterisk, inside the study, Dr. Lang pulled out a sleek folder with gold embossed lettering. Your son may qualify for a full scholarship program. We partner with elite academies and universities across the country. He'd have mentors, travel opportunities, and access to resources even most private schools can't provide. Asterisk, Lorna couldn't speak. Tears filled her eyes. Asterisk, we usually only consider students through formal channels, he added. But what I saw today was rare. Asterisk, Elijah stood beside her, looking confused. Mama, is everything okay? Asterisk, she looked down at him, both hands on his shoulders, and smiled through the tears. Everything's better than okay. Asterisk, meanwhile, back in the ballroom, Olivia Carmichael watched them leave the study and whispered to herself, that boy didn't just beat me. He changed something in this house. Asterisk, in the weeks that followed, Elijah's name began floating through elite circles. Not as a spectacle, not as a novelty, but as a prodigy. Invitations arrived, interviews, scholarships, and through it all, Lorna never let go of his hand. Asterisk, because behind every genius is someone who believed in them before the world did. Asterisk, and it all started with a game no one thought he could win.